Indy's life changes after the popular boy, Bryant, murders her. He starts taking an interest in her romantically. At the same time, her best friend for years, Maxton, also confesses his feelings for her. Indy's life is perfect as a little girl. Her mother loves her and makes her feel like a princess. The only pain she knows is when she trips and falls. But her mom is always there for her, while her dad left before she was born. Her mom perishes 2 years after the birthday where she gifted Indy a cat, Mrs. Wiggins. 10-year-old Indy is forced to live with her relatives, who complain about how long the funeral was. Her aunt, Clarice, makes her stay in the attic, which has an old bed her neighbors gave them. She wonders if she can ask her husband, David, to let Indy decorate it. She knows Indy's mom just perished, but she refuses to let her mope around. Indy is expected to help out in the house and always keep her room clean. Indy sleeps with Mrs. Wiggins and continues doing so for the next few years. As Indy makes breakfast, her cousin, Jada, complains about her cracked phone screen. She offers it to her sister, Caitlin, who doesn't want a used phone. She throws it in the trash and doesn't care if Indy takes it. While Caitlin and Jada leave in the car, Indy walks to the same school. Indy always stays in the shadows in her school. The most popular guy is Bryant Bailey. Indy hates how girls like her cousins keep throwing themselves at him. He also hangs out with his sister, Mackenzie, who Indy still finds decent. She attends classes and hates physical education. She eats food from the canteen every day because she never gets money from Clarice. Her best friend, Maxton, is her saving grace since he distracts her from life. She keeps wondering how her life would be if her mom was still alive. David complains about her cooking and thinks she must have learned it from her mother. Indy feels frustrated on some days because her life after her mother passed away got a lot worse. As they all head out of the house, Mrs. Wiggins slips out too through the door. As Bryant's car comes speeding, he hits and ends Mrs. Wiggins. He keeps apologizing to Indy, who feels shattered after losing her cat. Indy tries to hide from Bryant in school and leaves with Max as he follows her. Bryant bumps into his father, Dr. Bailey, who has some sessions scheduled with students. He has some patients from this school and feels it's better if he holds sessions there. Bryant is distracted and calls out to Indy, who keeps ignoring him. Dr. Bailey assures Bryant she will eventually hear him out. Indy doesn't want to let Bryant apologize to her. She doesn't want to give him a clear conscience. She trips and falls, but Bryant helps her get up. Bryant asks her to hear him out once, but she wants to be left alone. She reminds him he never even noticed her before he hit her cat. She refuses to forgive him because Mrs. Wiggins was the last gift from her mom before she perished. Bryant informs his dad about the situation with Indy. When he mentions the cat and her mom, his dad remembers her name is Cindy. He knows a bit about her and tries to explain it to Bryant. Clarice is angry when Indy is late for serving breakfast. Indy claims she has a headache, and even Clarice admits she looks awful. She doesn't want Indy to spread her disease, especially since she has a presentation that day. She agrees to have cereal, but asks Indy to clean up later. She also asks Indy to return the top she borrowed from Jada and get it dry cleaned. Bryant asks for Indy after Maxton's match, since he didn't see her at school. Maxton knows she has a headache and might be at home. He claims she never comes to his games because her aunt and uncle are very strict. Clarice knows how popular Bryant is and happily invites him into the house. She pretends to be kind to Indy and thinks it's very sweet of Bryant to apologize. Bryant knew Indy wouldn't agree to meet him if he told her in advance. He wants them to be friends, but Indy feels like he's pitying her. He claims to be genuinely worried about her. She warms up to him because he got her something to eat. Bryant admits he doesn't know why exactly he came there. He felt like she might need him. Indy thinks he is only trying to feel better about the cat. She thinks if he cared, he would leave her alone. He admits he probably needs her and asks if they can go for a walk. Indy loves being around flowers because they remind her of her mom. Bryant informs her about the day 5 or 6 years ago when his dad came late from work. He saw an accident where a car got hit by a truck and a semi. He called 911 when he knew the lady driving the car was not going to make it. He held her hand and she told him to let Indy know she loves her and will always be with her. Indy remembers a man at the funeral telling her all this, but she didn't know he was Bryant's dad. Since Dr. Bailey addressed her as Cindy, she explains that her name is Cindy Ella. Her mom used to call her Little Cinderella. Bryant assures her that his dad did everything to take her mind off the pain. He feels bad, but she has made peace with the fact that bad things happen. Bryant thinks it's more important to learn from these obstacles. Bryant feels weird that her cousins left her alone in this attic. Indy prefers it this way, even if it is completely different from the rest of the house. They have 6 bedrooms for 4 people, but there's no space for Indy. Bryant suggests moving the toys and staying in one of the better rooms, but Indy claims she doesn't mind. She doesn't have dolls because her mom enjoyed experiences more than things. She doesn't even have any other stuff from her mother because she had to sell them for funeral expenses. She came to this house with just her cat. Jada has learned from Clarice that Bryant is in the house and comes over to see him. She sees him at a party at their place the next day, and Caitlin comes to see him too. As they sit too close, Bryant feels uncomfortable and makes an excuse to leave. Clarice rants about all the work she and the girls had to do in Indy's absence. She feels Indy should be sorry and asks her to clean the mess up. She wants everything scrubbed and looking amazing for her daughter's party the next day. She suggests Indy should stay in the room while they party. Maxton helps Indy with the garbage bags and fills her in about his soccer match. He offers to help with her chores, but Indy knows Clarice won't like it. After Indy has worked hard and made a lot of food, her sisters take all the credit. Indy is covered in flour and heads to her room. Bryant asks for Indy when he arrives, but the girls ignore the topic. Indy tries to get some rest while she misses her mom. Bryant joins her and jokes about how hard it was to find her in her own house. He offers her his shirt since it's cold and asks why she was hiding. Indy claims she had a long day after cleaning up and cooking. Bryant is impressed with the food she made, but also assumes she wasn't invited by her cousins. Indy explains that they are from different social circles. He jokes about her life being like Cinderella's, but Indy refuses to believe she is anything like her. Bryant offers to free her from the prison and takes her out. Indy loves the food at the restaurant where his mom used to get him. She perished suddenly 10 years ago after her bike got hit by an irresponsible driver. Bryant knows she was riding the bike because they were about to enter a parent triathlon. On the day of the triathlon, he stayed curled up in his bed. He cried the most that night and hasn't forgotten that race till now. He feels they should get to know each other more. He feels relationships start like this, but she reminds him they don't know each other. He feels all friendships are also relationships, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to know her better. Indy knows Clarice will be very mad if she finds her hanging out with Bryant. She also doesn't approve of Indy having relationships, so she feels Bryant is better off with people like her cousins. Bryant knows he doesn't want to get to know her cousins. They were gossiping earlier and probably didn't see him slip out of the party. He claims to like kind girls like her and is sure her cousins are not. Bryant wants to go on a date again, but Indy points out they're from different worlds. She claims he is not her type, but he knows there's more to the story. She explains that she could get in a lot of trouble with her aunt. Bryant agrees to keep their friendship a secret for a few weeks and see how it goes. He teases her about being Cinderella and needing to go back before it gets too late. They accidentally get too close, and she nervously returns his shirt to him. Indy keeps blushing and texting Bryant during class. He hopes they can meet soon, and she agrees. Maxton notices that Indy is acting different and smiling. He keeps pestering her to reveal what she's hiding. She admits that Bryant seems to like her. They have been hanging out a lot, and he seems to think they are dating. Maxton asks what he said when she told him she has a boyfriend. He apparently thinks of himself as her boyfriend, but she didn't even know he liked her. Maxton explains that he has always liked her. He knew she didn't want a boyfriend, so he remained friends with her. He wants to explain more, but they leave for classes. During the history lesson, Bryant checks up on her. She claims she will explain something weird that happened later. After class, she asks Maxton what happened to change their relationship from a simple friendship. Maxton reminds her of the time she got very sick last summer. She called him over, so he snuck out and talked to her all night. Indy remembers being delirious because of the medication. Maxton feels it was the first time she really showed him how scared she was. She has always been the fun, tough girl. When she needed him, he felt like things changed between them. She saw them as best friends, but he felt they were more like a couple. Indy wonders why he never asked her out or kissed her after that summer. Maxton didn't think she was ready, but kisses her right there. He feels awkward, but clarifies that he wants to be her boyfriend. She asks for some time to think, so he plans a date the next day. He asks her to tell Clarice she's doing a school project with him. Indy tries to talk to their neighbor, Mrs. Whitman, while tending to the garden. Bryant joins her, and she informs him about the confusion with Maxton. He asks what she thinks, and if they have been on a date. She admits he kissed her that day when she told Maxton about him. Bryant thinks she should consider giving Maxton a chance. They have been friends for a long time. and Maxton has a lead on Bryant. Indy is worried she might like Maxton more than Bryant. But Bryant is just happy she likes him a little bit. He promises to be friends with her regardless. On their first official date, Maxton asks why Indy was shocked he liked her. He asks why she thinks he ate lunch with her every day. She assumed they were best friends, but she also noticed him rejecting his soccer friends for lunch. Maxton explains that he has liked her for a long time. When Indy was embarrassed about eating at the canteen, he asked his mom to get him meal tickets too. He claims it didn't matter where they were eating, as long as he got to be with her. His soccer friends also tease him about her and keep asking why she never comes to his games. He didn't want to pressure her because he knows how strict Clarice and David are. Maxton knows he's not as great as Bryant, but hopes she cares about him. Indy wants to come to his next soccer game and claims she will deal with Clarice later. Indy still asks for more time to decide if she wants to be his girlfriend. Clarice believes she was working on a school project and asks her to clean the house. Bryant asks about Maxton, and she clarifies they're not officially dating yet. She still got to know that Maxton has sacrificed a lot to spend time with her. She explains about the lunch money, but Bryant has seen her cousins going out all the time. Indy clarifies that they get weekly allowances while she never does. Bryant is still fascinated by how her family makes her to all the housework like Cinderella. Indy admits she doesn't like the chores, but feels she has to do it for her family. He thinks she is too nice and feels bad about her cat. Indy admits Mrs. Wiggins shouldn't have sneaked out on the road and feels bad for blaming him. Bryant has been unable to sleep and tries to talk to his dad. Dr. Bailey can tell he likes her, but Bryant claims he did something stupid. He regrets encouraging her to explore something with Maxton. Dr. Bailey thinks he's being a good friend, even if he doesn't want her to date Maxton. He feels Bryant has a good heart, and he's letting her make her own choice because she's special. Bryant knows his dad has seen a lot of dysfunctional families. He wonders if it's common for them to treat orphans differently. He has noticed that Indy is not even an equal in her family. Dr. Bailey has seen that a lot, and feels people do that unconsciously too sometimes. Indy, as usual, hates running in PE, but Maxton keeps showing off to impress her. Bryant finds Indy after school and brings her to a playground. This place reminds him that no one is ever too old to have fun. He remembers a time he broke his arm on a merry-go-round. He survived, but kept coming back for more. He hopes she doesn't get into trouble with her aunt for the delay. He asks if Clarice was cool about Maxton dropping her off after the date. Indy explains that she had to do extra chores for coming late, and thinks that's normal. Bryant has noticed that Clarice is treating her like a servant, which parents usually don't do. He feels Maxton should have walked her in and taken the blame for getting her late. Indy knows that wouldn't have helped, because Clarice would wait for him to leave and give her a hard time anyway. Her cousins spot them at the playground and wonder what Bryant is doing with Indy. They find Clarice waiting at the door, and Bryant decides to walk her in. Clarice is polite to Bryant and claims he just missed her daughters. Bryant asks if she thinks they're late, but Clarice claims she was only checking to make sure Indy reached home on time. He offers to stay back, but Clarice thinks Indy will do better without him. Clarice asks Indy to behave and thinks Bryant is only talking to her out of guilt. She knows her daughters have been pursuing him for years. She asks Indy to back off because Jada is hoping Bryant will take her to the prom. Bryant calls to make sure she's fine, but Indy didn't hear anything she hasn't dealt with before. He offers to walk with her to school, but she doesn't want to get grounded before Maxton's soccer match on Saturday. She still thanks Bryant for standing up for her that day. Indy cheers for Maxton during the match and feels bad when he gets injured. She is impressed with how well he played. He claims he had extra motivation because of her. He likes that she's there for him and kisses her. Bryant asks if Clarice got mad about her reaching late. Indy thinks she didn't notice because she's stuck inside. Clarice shouts out to Indy, so she cuts the call to head downstairs. Clarice received a call from Mrs. Whitman, who saw her making out with Maxton. Clarice thinks that's very embarrassing, but David asks her to deal with this alone. He makes a comment about her mother being a floozy, which triggers Indy. She asks David for an explanation and claims her actions are her own choice. Her mother loved her and only said nice things about them. She asks David to stop suggesting there was something wrong with her mother. She knows they don't want her in the house, but feels they are not a real family. She is frustrated about how she keeps doing things for them, but Jada and Caitlin get to live normal lives while she doesn't. She wants them to see her as family, but Clarice starts laughing. David asks Indy to respect them or find another house to stay. Indy wonders if respect for him is about staying away from family events and cooking for them without having a life. Clarice feels offended. She's accusing them of treating her like a maid. She feels they have made a lot of changes in their lives to include her. David dismisses her to her room and is sure they will have a severe punishment for a selfish brat like her. Indy starts panicking and packs her bags. She cries on the floor and gets text from Bryant checking up on her. She calls Maxton, but he's busy because of his ankle injury. He claims to be in a lot of pain and asks to call her back. She shares that this night is worse than anything else. He feels she should give her aunt some time to cool off, but she claims she's scared. He ignores that when the doctor comes back and keeps the call. Bryant has turned up at her place because he was worried she wasn't replying. She makes him quietly come in through the back door, and he notices she has been packing. She informs him about what happened when Maxton kissed her. She also explains how after David's comment about her mom, she lost her filter and lashed out. Bryant asks if she needs a place to stay because he feels their threats will just get worse. His dad has seen abusive families all the time who always think they're right. Bryant makes her see how it's not fair for their daughters to have everything when Indy doesn't even get a proper room. Indy still doesn't think that is abuse, but Bryant is sure all this qualifies as emotional abuse. He calls his dad for advice, and even Dr. Bailey seems concerned. He is now obligated by law to call Child Protective Services after Bryant informed him. Bryant assures her they can keep it private. Indy isn't ready to fight with her family, but Bryant asks her to think about herself for once. His dad is certified to take foster kids, and he's sure they can take her in for the night. Indy doesn't feel her family will hit her, but Bryant is concerned about what they will do if they keep locking her in her room. Dr. Bailey assures Indy they will make sure she's comfortable. He asks her to answer some questions if she's fine so he can prepare better for the morning. Once he has interviewed her, he asks Indy to rest and makes Bryant show her the room. Indy is worried about how Clarice will react. Bryant is sure she did the right thing by leaving and asks her to text him if she can't sleep. She thanks him for all his help, and he hugs her. Indy wakes up late to find Mackenzie making breakfast for everyone. She feels guilty, but is surprised they have made some breakfast for her too. Dr. Bailey jokes about whipped cream fights, and Indy thanks them for letting her stay. Dr. Bailey suggests that she can even stay in the pool house if she wants privacy. Indy hears people from Child Protective Services discussing with Dr. Bailey that they need to take her back to her aunt's house. They have hired a powerful attorney who wants her back. Bailey refuses to let her go and claims they're supposed to keep her safe as government representatives. They keep giving points about how they are Indy's legal guardians, but Dr. Bailey refuses to take her back to a place where she was abused. Indy panics after hearing all this and runs away barefoot to the park. She feels Bryant was not serious about saving her and feels bad for trusting him. She starts panicking because she saw a police officer and thinks they will take her back. Bryant explains that her aunt and uncle will keep using tactics to get her back. He assures her that his dad is doing everything to prevent that. They wanted Indy to do the interview with Child Protective Services at Clarice's house, but his dad has already convinced them to do it somewhere she feels safe. She wonders why he is helping her, but Bryant refuses to let anyone treat her like this. He assures her she is not a burden, but he realizes how wrong Dr. Bailey's suggestion about the pool house sounded. He explains that his dad wanted her to have privacy and not banish her in the attic like her family did. He brings her back to the house, and everyone is glad she is safe. Dr. Bailey informs her about the interview the next day at the office and asks her to not worry about school. He explains that they might have to attend a hearing where he is sure they will win. Bryant also assures her she will never go back to her aunt's place. Dr. Bailey offers that they can be her foster family permanently, and they all hug her. Clarice asks David to act like they're sad in front of Child Protective Services. David wants to abuse Indy when they see her, but Clarice reminds him to keep acting. Indy feels nervous after the interview because she's also afraid of what will happen to her aunt and uncle. They treated her badly, but she still cares for them. Dr. Bailey knows Bryant was right about how kind he is. He assures her it will work out and informs her about a movie night at home. Indy is finally glad to be part of a movie night when she gets a text from Maxton. She doesn't know how to respond. Bryant helps her and types a message asking Maxton to come over anytime. She feels it's much better than what she would write. Bryant's younger sister, Ronnie, keeps shushing them for interrupting the best part of the movie. They have all seen it 100 times, but she still wants to see it. Maxton feels bad for not being there for Indy when she was going through something like this. He offers to come over to talk to her the next day. Dr. Bailey has found out that her mother had a $300,000 insurance policy that her aunt and uncle took to raise her. She hasn't seen any of it, so Dr. Bailey assures her they will win it back in court. Indy feels weird because she always felt like a burden to her aunt and uncle. Now that she knows it didn't cost them anything, she doesn't know how to feel. Bryant is sure she never deserved to be treated that way. He also asks her to be his date to prom, and is sure that will make her cousins jealous. Indy realizes she would love to go with him, because she doesn't have any chores or obligations tying her down. Maxton comes to see her, and knows he can't compete with Bryant's family. He feels stupid for not asking her out sooner, but feels the last few years have been great with her. He wishes he could have been there for her. But Indy assures him he helped her get through some really tough times with her family. He asks if they hurt her, but she assures him Dr. Bailey is doing everything he can. She has decided to stay at the same school, because she thinks it's the right thing to do. He is happy she will be there, even if it's not with him. He knows she prefers Bryant, but feels satisfied he got so many good years with her. She promises to be his best friend, and hopes he finds someone special too. Indy is sure their friendship will be fine even after Maxton walks away. With Dr. Bailey's help, her aunt and uncle lose custody of her, and are ordered by court to pay her back for the policy and emotional trauma. She buys a car with the money, but takes Dr. Bailey's advice about not using all of it at once. She starts staying at the pool house, since she feels it's better with her and Bryant dating. She is glad to have a family again, and Bryant's sisters help her dress up for the prom. Dr. Bailey comes out with his camera, but realizes he has a battery issue. Indy feels beautiful for the first time, and thanks Bryant for it. He thinks she has always been beautiful and kisses her. He gifts her a new cat, and is sure he will compete with it for her affection. She is happy to be with him more, and they all get clicked before the prom.